Okay, so I am back again with another participant in my project, the 7 Simple Questions with Creative Women. And today I am going to interview Elizabeth Basford. She is a very creative woman, and I'm excited to be able to share her ideas, her creativity with everyone who pays attention, peeks at this video. So I will get started and introduce Elizabeth. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi, Conjure James.
Okay, thank you for joining me on an early Saturday morning.
It's
That's
true.
another that's a great thing. You're up early at the beach on a Saturday morning.
I am indeed. That streaming light is directly off the Atlantic Ocean.
Wow, must be nice.
It's a little cold out there.
Yes, it is a little cold for a December, but still is the beach.
Yes.
Okay, so I have known Elizabeth now for 3.5, almost 4 years, and I am inspired and admire a lot about her. So I wanted to be able to share her experiences, her background, and her creative problem solving with my viewers who are peeking in at this video and getting an idea of the differences in creative women and the similarities in creative women and the similarities across blends of creativity. So I'll begin with the first opening question. Give us a little bit about where you sit within the realm of creativity and the arts.
I I think it's an awareness, some kind of a sensitivity that begins in childhood, where you are a supreme observer of everything around you. So it goes back as long and as far as I can remember. And I'm told even before my own conscious state, everyone around me knew that they like to say different. I'm sure anybody in the creative realm has had people say, we just knew you were different.
Yeah.
And so it was always like that. But my real driving force and energy is around language
Okay.
and poetry and syntax and expression and how you can say things without saying things
Definitely.
through your language and through your choice of words and through the rhythm and the music and the more abstract you get and so on and so forth. So, very, very rudimentary stages of early dreaming of being a writer to very late stages of thinking how I could say an entire novel in 3 sentences.
Wow. Wow. Okay. That's a big one. That's a big goal.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, I'm gonna track that one. I'm gonna keep track of that one. Okay, so tell us how you began. I know that you write poetry. We've talked about that in the past, but tell us a little bit about more than just the poetry, all the things that you do, and tell us a little bit how you began working in that area.
So I grew up in a house with no books. It's always how I start my story because I think it's still mind-boggling to me today how it all evolved. But I was an avid reader as a child, and I didn't have any books, but I did have a library card, New York Public Library, which I was old enough to cross the street. My life changed in third grade when one teacher took me to get a library card. But the other thing that happened that was really seminal was my mother took a job at NYU, which we lived in the Bronx. It was the Heights campus, which is now Bronx Community College. She worked in the graduate English office. So I went from a house with no books to, instead of being a latchkey kid, she would sneak me into her office after school and I would wait in the kitchen area in the English department of NYU, which meant I was surrounded by books, rooms and rooms and rooms of books and portraits of dodgy old writers and all the great writers of the day. Galway Kinnell, Sharon Olds, would come in and get their tea. And I would be sitting at the kitchen table doing my homework. And when I was done with my homework, if it was an empty sort of day in the office, I could roam freely through the office and pick things out. And one day, and this is a changing point, this is one of the markers of my life. I pulled down a book by John Donne and I opened the book, and at 9 years old, I read, "No lover saith I have nor any other shall judge the perfect lover. I think that else none can nor will agree that no one loves but he." And I was never the same after that. And how does a 9-year-old girl in the Bronx pull a book of an old English poetry down of John Donne and be completely and utterly changed by that?
That's amazing.
So that's where it started. That is it. Marker number 1.
Marker number one. And what did that make you do at 9? What differences did you see at 9? Or can you think back? Did you see differences at 9 from instead of zigging, that made you zag?
I started writing immediately. I
Wow.
wanted to emulate what I felt in the course of studying and memorizing and chanting those words over and over and over again in my head as a child. They used to have these test booklets in college at universities called the Blue Book, where
Yeah,
you would actually write your essays by hand.
I remember those.
I used to go around and pick the half empty blue books out of the trash in the office and rip out the pages, and I had a collection now of empty tiny blue books where I did all my writing surreptitiously.
Wow.
Under my pillow, under my bed, all these blue books. And
Do you by chance still have any of those?
I don't have any of those. I did for a long time, but several moves later, right? And a lot of
Right,
years.
right. Wow,
But,
that's amazing.
yeah, and I also came up with like a whole string of pen names. That was another part of the great creative movement of a child is like,
Right, right, right. That's the license of being a child, is you can think of things like that, and it's okay. Okay. Now, if we think of pen names now as an adult, then we're like bipolar or schizo or something. Like people start worrying about us. So yes, that's one of the great things about being a kid is you can do those things. So okay, so you started your first consciousness of your level of creativity was 9. So
mhm,
that's pretty interesting that you can, number one, remember that, and
mhm.
number two, that moment was monumental, that it stays with you. You remember that, and I'm willing to bet that a lot of people who found their purpose early, or whenever they found their purpose, I shouldn't really say early, but whenever they found their purpose, that moment, that purpose filled moment probably stays with them too. Okay, so now I want to switch gears and think,
It's like biblical revelation, one of those
yes,
moments, right?
yes, I agree, I agree. So I want to switch gears and I want to think about currently, how do you exercise, you said earlier, language. How do you exercise that love of language and what's inside of you that comes out as your measure of creativity? How do you give it back to the world?
Uh, Word choice. I think it comes down to word choice and how you express and voice. When we were studying writing in school, probably in elementary and middle and high school, people would say, well, you need to find your voice. And voices, and it's such a weird, you don't really know it until you can't find it, or it's
Right.
come and goes, I guess. But um I really am excited by, like, I'm emotionally stimulated by a perfect word choice.
Mm,
I'm a public speaker by trade now.
mm,
And my only prayer before I open my mouth in front of people is, please, Lord, give me access to my vocabulary. I
mm,
don't like stammering when I'm looking for a word. I
mm.
love the beauty and the music and the fluidity of language, and not just what the actual words are saying, but what happens to the listener when the poetry and the music, even of a prose or a speech, is uninterrupted and
Mhm.
completely in command. I find that to be one of the joys of being alive, is good communication.
Right, right. We've talked about that. I know that you have a love of the idea of oracy and that
Great.
being a prevalent part of
Yeah.
the process.
Hmm.
So yes, I can see that. I can see your passion about it and a lot of the other things that we've talked about. Okay, so now I want to get to some of the ideas that my project wants to bring forward is getting a feel from the various creative women that I speak with about how they have experienced the male-female dynamic in our society. Um, think back to that 9-year-old you, the 11-year-old you, the 15-year-old you. Think back to the college you. As you were finding that voice, can you think back and see differences in your male counterparts and the process of them finding whatever their thing is? Yours, it was voice, or them finding whatever their thing is. Can you think back to working with male artists, male poets, and see a difference in the past of the male female dynamic?
You know, I know the reigning story that would be told would be very different from mine. But to be honest, most of my mentors and most of my strongest model were men.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
my poetry models are all men. Gerald Stern, Walt Whitman, Jack Gilbert, Tomasz Salomon. These are the people uh, who awaken me every day if I'm not fully awake. I will still reach for a book in the morning just to wake myself fully up.
Hmm.
I was at NYU. I studied under Walter James Miller and some of the other greats at that time whose names just flew out of my head, and that's unfortunate. But it was real. I felt entirely nurtured all the time in my development as a writer. Nothing happened until I got to NYU in college. I was really on my own until then because I was such an oddity in a tiny little Catholic school in the Bronx where it was really only expected that you become a cop, a fireman, a nurse, or a teacher. Those were sort of our options, second generation American. So, college was a big dream. I think maybe out of the couple of hundred kids in my graduating class, maybe 10 of us went to university. Maybe one or two became professionals, doctors and so on. But so nothing really happened for me until I got to college. It's a long span between 9 and whatever. So I was
Right.
on my own a lot, just trying to, I never fit into the box. That was the expectation around me. But it was all men, really. It was all men who were both my model and my mentor.
Interesting, interesting. I think that's why you and I have bonded so well because we were both out of the box. I always felt like, and I still to a certain degree, I'm always trying to figure out, am I supposed to be here right now? Did I go into the wrong room? Something's not right. So I can relate to that. Now that's interesting. That your what's the word I want? Your awakening was at 9, but your manifestation didn't come to maybe you say NYU.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And all of your mentoring were males and your models
Yes.
were males. That's interesting. That's very interesting. So then from your background that kind of helped you grow to the orator that you are, a lot of that was influenced by male role models. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. And from the ladies that I've interviewed thus far, that is a very different perspective.
Yeah. No,
That
I'm
is,
aware of it. Even before I said it, I know it was going to be very different, which might, it's kind of enriching for your project to have a different experience. And it's 100% true. So from, my entire childhood, I just thought I was weird. It wasn't until I got to NYU that someone told me,
I still think I'm weird.
you're you know, you're, you're brilliant. You're talented.
Wow.
The first time someone gave me back a piece of writing and said, "You really need to come see me Tuesday at 2:00. We need to talk." Um, all up until that time, I just thought I was an oddball.
Huh.
I didn't know that I had a, a talent. I didn't know that I had been bestowed a gift that could uh, set me free.
That is really amazing.
Mm.
Okay, so now that was a portion of your life that kind of was, I call it the seed,
Mm-hmm.
because now you're the plant. You've bloomed, you've blossomed. Tell me a little bit about now. Tell me now, do you see differences in the way I don't know if received is the right way. I want you to give me your thoughts, but for lack of a better word, I'll say received. Do you see a difference in the way your gift is received versus maybe a male counterpart? I know your husband is also an artist. Do you see a difference in his growth and your growth and then where you guys are now and how that's received?
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, first of all, we were both when we met, which is 30 years ago. We were both practicing artists. And once you have babies, a family cannot be supported by two practicing artists in New York. That's not going to happen. So one of us had to make the change, and I was really happy to make the change because Andy was, at that point a little further along in his career and was making money. So I was not as a writer. Writing is like being the tuba player. Like you're just not going to get a lot of gigs in writing, and you have to decide the kind of writing I wanted to do, the kind of writing I was doing was not going to pay for the infant formula and the Pampers, and it just was not. It was more journeying. So I dabbled in journalism, and I tried to, maybe I can do that kind of writing. Just still really hard to get those kinds of gigs, and it didn't work. And I had some successes with poetry, and I won a couple of awards.
Wow.
Lots of poetry readings, that kind of stuff. Local, New York, Bronx Council on the Arts, New York's Foundation for the Arts, but thrilling. But I would say that honestly, I didn't notice the stunning dichotomy of male versus female until I went into business.
Interesting.
And that was where it struck me, because I had been, raised in for all intents and purposes, an Irish household. The women run things. Like, there was never any doubt in my mind. Women ran things. My world, women ran things.
Mm-hmm.
So I never was encumbered by an awareness that I had to take a back seat to anyone at any time. I had a great relationship with men because they were my mentors and my models. So I very unusually spiraled up into the upper echelon of business. And then I was like, what is this weird feeling I'm feeling? And I was a full-grown woman. I had raised 2 children when I realized, what's that smell? I smell, oh my God, I smell misogyny. What the hell is that?
Oh, wow.
Somebody's shoe in this room. Damn, So, yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and it's very, very striking how quickly then you temper everything through that lens. Like, once I had that wake up call, now I'm looking for it. Now I'm always like, wait, what?
What?
Right. What? So, yeah, but it wasn't until I was a full-grown woman in business that I picked up the.
Interesting.
Now, maybe that was a kind of unconsciousness of my own, because I've always been sort of a ball of fire. So maybe I just charged through life and I wasn't looking around, but none of it touched me. None of it emotionally touched me until I was a full-grown woman in business.
I think I can relate to that. Yes, I think I can relate to that. Okay, so then that brings me to thinking about, let's look forward. Thinking about where you've been, where you are, what you've learned, where do you see in the future exercising your level of creativity, your gift of language and creativity? Where do you see giving that in the future to the rest of the world?
I long to write again, with more focus and discipline. Although as soon as I say that, my own hand comes out of the back of my head and slaps me in the side of the head, because we all know that's foolishness. And that if you really, really want to do something, you find the time and the discipline. I actually did some of my best work when I was the mother of 2 children, with an extremely busy lifestyle, was some of the most elevated and daring and leapful poetry I've ever done within that time. So that's bullshit. So I'm calling my own bullshit out right now.
Right. Okay.
I do travel for a living. I mean, the only writing I do now is ad copy, emails. Sometimes I can be really thrilled because I know it's poetry that has just influenced this tagline or something I say. Or, the other thing is, in the work we do, we are interpreters of the complex to make it palatable for people. So I feel my poetry training coming into that, where I can take something that's really complex and just make it succinct.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I want to get back to the joy of what the words give you when words are so benevolent. What the words give you when they appear on your page or in your mind. It is as if you truly are channeling information from some other sphere that comes in through you. And those moments are so sublime that I long to be immersed in them again for long periods of time. And so I know that is something I will do. I continue to read, I continue to study all the time, but to really sit, it does take silence.
Mm-hmm.
We live in really noisy world, you and I. We travel and it's crazy, and silence is critical to my process. I need a lot of quiet. I need to be listening, and more than anything, I really need to be looking hard. And I don't need to be physically looking at something, but I need to be in my mind looking really hard. I one time did uh, a whole series of poems from staring at my favorite teacup from different angles.
Huh. Kind of Picasso-ish.
It was a meditative, yeah, I had gone through my um, discovery of John Ashbery was really a cubist moment, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Really like interesting things where our arts would meet. But yeah, if you stare long enough at an inanimate object, that object still has a lot of information in its energy field around it. And, you know, that was the most exciting time of my writing life, which
Mhm.
is actually right pretty much when I stopped. So my last stop was brilliantly exciting. Um, and so that's where I long to go back to.
Now, what do you think? So I know your job. In full disclosure, she's my manager, so I know her job. She knows my job. She's my manager. Uh, but what do you think, aside from the work that we do, what do you think holds you back from your future state of creativity, of writing, of poetry, of journaling, of journalism? What holds you back from that, aside from our job?
Wow. You know, it would really, it would suck to suck. You know what I mean? It would, you know, I had such, you know how the crumbs are laid out on the road and you follow the crumbs? Like each crumb along my road in my artistic life, in my life of writing poetry, and I've never called myself a poet. Like I don't ever say I'm a poet. People bestow that upon you
Mm-hmm.
when they read your work. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, but like in my quest to communicate what it is to be alive from my perspective in my writing, my crumbs have been so just perfectly placed and rich that I would hate to like go back to it and just find that there's no there anymore, that I've lost my juju, that you know, it died. I mean, it's an interesting time to be a woman anyway. I'm just about to turn 60. Everything is changing. The way I feel about even being in the front of the room is changing. Like there's a tucking in and a sort of separation from the world that begins to happen at 60. It's a very different perspective and time of life. So it'll be interesting to see who I am as a writer, but it would suck to have lost it, you know, that it truly has died along with some of the other, you know, hormones and hair follicles, everything else, you know what I mean? It's kind of the autumn.
Huh.
You know, we'll see. We'll see.
So that's hard for me to hear because of who I know you to be and how inspirational
Well, thank
you
you.
have been for me. I mean, you say things to me that stay in this short 3.5 years that have stayed with me. I am where I am right now doing these series of videos because of things that you've said
Wow.
to me.
Thank
So
you.
to hear you say it would suck to suck, I'm like, oh, please.
Well, you know, everything, I mean, what I enjoy most about our relationship is everything someone has touched me with. Like those are the things we pass on to each other. It's like this circular swirling. I always think of a body of water and all the stones in the body of water, and you bump up against people, and that's how rocks are made more
Mhm.
fine. And that's my reigning metaphor for relationships and conversation. And I don't believe we speak deeply enough to each other anymore. I
Mhm.
think it's lots of surface stuff,
I can understand that.
which is why I value you so much, because I know that you operate at a different frequency because you're an artist. You know, it was the most surprising thing I learned about you in the first 15 minutes. I just thought we were picking up another public speaker, you know. We
Ah.
and her stuff. And then I was like, wait, what?
Oh,
So
yeah. This whole artist thing, I sometimes have a hard time embracing the title because just like you said, you don't call yourself a poet.
mhm,
Someone else calls you a poet.
yeah.
So to be called an artist and in this new quest to seek to be an art historian is a little fearful because those are titles that other people give you. So then you feel like there's a definition that you have to live up to.
Yeah.
You have to meet that
That emotion,
definition.
though. Let's think about that for a second. What is that? It's close to embarrassment, but it's not embarrassment. It's like I always want to go, ooh, like when someone says, ooh, well, she's a poet. I just go, ooh, like a little shudder in my body.
I agree. I
That was
agree.
part thrill, part um, almost being revealed.
Yes.
You know
Yes.
what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, it's
I've
interesting.
had someone say that to me. Oh, well, she's an artist. And I'm like, oh, who, me? Wait, no, wait. I just paint.
Yeah,
I just make stuff. I'm not really an artist because it's then something about a thing that's in you that you can't help. Like I can't stop it.
okay, so now it's going to get really interesting because here's the difference between men and women. They're like, fuck yeah, I'm a poet.
Right.
Fuck yeah, I'm an artist, man.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I am like balls forward artist. And we're like, oh no, don't,
Oh, no, me.
oh no, you know.
That is so true. And
So
in
you
the
think
world
about,
that we work in,
in a world where 100 artists are going to starve and one artist is going to get to eat that day, five to get you 10, it's going to be a man because they're going to step up and
right,
go, I'm the baddest artist here, feed me first.
right.
Right. And we're all going to be,
I'll wait my turn.
yeah, yeah.
I'll wait to be discovered.
I'll wait till I get a little better.
Right. That's what I tell myself. I need to take more classes. I need to refine my shading techniques. I need to learn to blend a little bit better. I need to have a better left brain eye. My right brain eye takes over too much. And I do these things. I do these things.
Yeah.
That is definitely.
That's the sabotage factor that women carry in the arts, I believe. Now, I think it's a certain we're at a certain level. I
Mhm.
think that as soon as you get a little taste of success and recognition, that gets a little easier then. Like I will say, it was thrilling both times to win a poetry prize. It was
Right.
just a chapbook thing. It was like through the New York State Foundation of the Arts, down through the Bronx Council of the Arts. But honestly, like we were so broke then, we were young and had babies, and it was thrilling to win the prize for the cash, but it was really thrilling to have been chosen. And
Mhm.
then that was, so it's a confidence thing for women.
Mhm.
I don't think men necessarily have the same confidence factor. I think it's different, and I think that's in our DNA and our cellular memory
Mhm.
as women.
You
You
know,
know,
that is something that I'm always wondering, is that dynamic nature or nurture? And how would we really ever find out? Is it nature? Is it nurture? Is it a product of Western society? Is it a product of machismo society? These are things that I am constantly thinking about. And the other thing that this project
mm,
has brought forward in me is my definition of feminism in 2018 and my definition of myself as a feminist. I'm not quite sure I subscribe to the traditional definitions. I've just finished reading for probably the second time the Linda Nochlin essay, Why Have There Been No Great Women Artists?
mhm.
And she wrote that, I think, in 1971. That was
Wow.
the year I was born. I think she wrote it in 71. And so many of the things that she said then, she could have wrote that today. And I'm not quite sure where I sit with feminism, feminist art criticism.
Right.
feminist theory? I'm not quite sure. I don't know. I don't really have an answer, but what you just said, that nature nurture, I'm always wondering about that.
But I think here's one thing that I love and respect about you is your individualism. I'm not going to,
Trouble.
you know what? Good for you. Bravo. But it's not always, I'm not going to say it's always fearless individualism. And I think sometimes you're gripped with fear around your propensity for individualism, right?
Right.
But where was I going with that? I can't stand anything that dictates how I'm supposed to think or behave.
Right.
So I don't espouse, when you say, like, I would never say, well, I'm a feminist, because then I have to follow their whole fucking, it's too much, number one. And the whole thing, like, if I can't dance, I don't want to be part of your revolution. Like, I'm sorry, I'm going to wear mascara, kiss my ass. Okay.
Right.
So, yeah. And I'm going to shave my legs, ladies, because I come from the hippie brand of feminism. Right. So, like, I still have friends who go, God, you're wearing makeup? Yeah, I am. So, just all that shit. So really, my whole thing is I don't act for a group.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to act in the world and be beholden to a group set of code.
Right.
I want to act in the world, between me and my God as decently as I can.
Right.
End of story. So take your movement.
Right.
Enjoy yourselves.
Right. Right. I agree. I've been told so many times that I don't play well in the sandbox, and I struggle with that because
Why?
I don't like sandboxes with bylaws. Just no. I just don't.
Don't tell me. It's true. Like, what? I don't even know that famous quote. If I can't dance, I don't want to be part of your revolution.
Right.
And like, my husband reads The Nation, and I get so hysterical. I get giddy. I start cracking up. I'm like, these people. Can you imagine anything worse? They have these cruise ships for, like, lefty revolutionaries. Can you imagine what a fucking drag they are? Can you imagine going out on an ocean? For days with these fucking boring table slammers? Like,
right.
shoot me.
Right. But then I have to wonder, that's where I go back. When you said that as a young child, you always thought you were weird. That's where I can relate.
No, I mean, I knew I was weird. You know why? Because everybody told me. My mother's 95 years old. At Thanksgiving, she said, you were always so different. We just knew as soon as you could open your mouth, we were like, what? So, it's not, I knew because it was there. I had different ideas.
Yeah, I've always had different ideas. I can relate to that. Yeah. Okay. So this is good. So that brings me to some of my ending thoughts. So I wanted to hear about your past. I wanted to hear about your present. I wanted to hear what you're thinking in the future. And I want to wrap all that up, kind of put a bow on it with this question. What would you tell your younger self today, the you, knowing where you want to go, where you are, where you've been? What would you tell your younger self? What would be advice that you would give to other young ladies right now?
You absolutely cannot give a moment of consideration to what the people around you tell you to do. My least favorite word in the English language is should. When people open a conversation with me by saying, you should really do, they're locked out. Steel trap comes down. Should is a bad, dirty, filthy word.
Okay.
You should do nothing but learn to know yourself so intimately and love yourself so deeply and beautifully that everything you give out to the world is authentic and pure. And that is the work of being alive. And that is all God wants from us.
Right. That is so powerful. That is my struggle with authenticity. That is so powerful.
Well, stick with me, kiddo. Call me in the middle of the night. I'll remind you what your work is.
Well, I told you, if you ever leave this company, take me with you. I will be hanging on to your coattails. Wait. Well, Elizabeth, I appreciate you. I appreciate you for participating in my project. I appreciate you for being so open and so authentic in creating this video
Thank
that
you.
will go up on my website. So as soon as I'm ready to post it, I will let you know.
That's
And the
awesome.
whole world, well, I have a very small following, so it won't be the world. But my little teeny tiny following that pays attention to the stuff that I post, they will get to hear your words and they will get to learn from you as I've learned from you. I'm telling you, this short series of videos has opened my eyes
Beautiful.
so much to other people's experiences and the similarities, the differences, and then it's helped me see things for myself.
Yeah.
To be very selfish, it's almost helped me see more about where I want to go. It's helped me question my own decisions and goals and kind of checking myself. Are you doing this because you want to, or are you doing this because you think you should to make somebody else
That's
happy?
right. Fear or love.
Yeah. So this video, yours was great. Yours was probably the funniest one that I've had so far. So that's good. It was the most entertaining.
We got nothing but laughs, kid.
Right, right. But we do that all the time.
Yeah.
That's why I say, if you leave this company, take me with you.
Laugh long and loud. Thanks, Connie. You're a joy.
Thank you
You're
very much. I appreciate you.
take care.
And I will end this video now. So we'll say bye to Elizabeth. Bye, Elizabeth.
Bye. It was a pleasure.
And thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.